Hello everybody, today is a fragrance video and we will be speaking about perfumes that I've used up this year. There are quite a few, I haven't really counted them yet, but I'll be picking them out from this box and we'll see how many I've gone through this year and what do I have to say about them. I'd like to start with the two that are completely out, and funny enough, they're not really my favorite. And I found them to be somewhat similar to each other, which is why they're going in a pair right here, right now. Neither was a favorite of mine, but I still wanted to mention them, obviously, because I did finish them off. So let's start with Ariana Grande Cloud. This fragrance was one that I critiqued heavily. I will link down below my review of it. It was scathing. It was not a positive review. And although these two guys, the Ariana Grande Cloud and the Burberry Her, the original one, the latest one of the latest releases from Burberry, although note-wise, according to the manufacturer at least, they really don't have a lot to do with each other. However, I do find them kind of similar. So if you do like Burberry for Her, I suspect that you might like Ariana Grande Cloud. So I think, you know, for all you guys out there, lovers of this one, if you want to try something similar that is quite budget, try Ariana, I guess. So Cloud. First of all, the packaging is kind of tragic, at least to me. It's not something that I really like. It's not something that I find beautiful or even remotely acceptable, because this reminds me of Essence packaging. You know, the Essence, the very, very affordable brand of makeup at the drugstore. When I was in Europe, I don't know if they sell in North America their fragrances, but when I was in Europe, they do have fragrances as well. They literally have these kinds of packages on their fragrances, and their fragrances like under $10, under $5 maybe even. So I hate the packaging. The packaging is very cheap. For all you Ariana Grande followers and fans out there, this has nothing to do with her as a person. This has nothing to do with her artistic ability. This has to do with her name being on the perfume. I don't care whose name is on the perfume. I don't like the perfume. It's fine. Settle down. Relax. It's not a personal attack on you. I just thought that this kind of sucked. In terms of notes, this is really up my alley. It's listed as a lactonic coconut sort of fragrance, and I've been really into that kind of line of perfumery recently, so I was very excited to try it, and I was really hoping that it would work out. Now, initially, if you're doing a test and you're smelling this on a blotter, I think you would be intrigued as well, as was I. But the way that this particular fragrance opens up on my skin was extremely disappointing. All of the richness and the milkiness of it just kind of turned into a dusty sort of rancidness, which was very disappointing, and it wore off fairly quickly, and it wore off into a bit of a baby powder scent. And I would say it is probably gourmand, but there's just something very plastic and synthetic in the scent that bothered me. And it could be that that's how it opens on my skin, but generally sweet fragrances wear very nicely on me. My skin loves sweet fragrances, and it really amplifies sweetness of fragrances. So this plastic background aftertaste was really what I had a problem with, and the scent did not have a very clear pyramidal structure. It wouldn't morph and change on your skin with time. It was kind of flat. However, I do expect that if you don't get that plastic nasty aftertaste, and it has nothing to do with the actual perfume because it smells like that after application on skin. If you don't get that and you do like linear, non-supported, non-structured fragrance that does not morph, perhaps you would be enjoying this. There is something a bit fruity about it, although they don't really list fruits. I mean, they list coconut and that's about it. But there is something maybe something to do with the synthetic strawberry taste, you know, like if you have cheap suckers or lollipops or candy and it has this like really, really artificial strawberry flavor, I think there's a little bit of that in there. I would say very, very young fragrance, not very interesting. Composition is disappointing. However, it may be that it's just a thing that my skin does to it. That is the problem. However, I think it does have more to do with composition because I have very similar feelings about Burberry Her. This release was something I was very, very excited about, and I hear that for her, or Her Intense, is a little bit different, and I'm kind of intrigued to try it, but I've been just so disappointed with the Her version that I'm hesitant to try a flanker. This seems to be a pretty beloved scent, and many, many people really like it. I have several issues with it, and I'll tell you what they are. Now, this is not an unpleasant scent. This is quite nice. It's a nice scent. I look for a lot more than just nice from a perfume, so therefore, especially given the note breakdown that I was looking at, I got quite excited about the notes and got quite excited about it being a sonnet. It being something maybe very gentle, a little bit sleepy, a little bit soft and agreeable. I mean, it's not disagreeable, I wouldn't say. And here as well, I am sensing this powdery, plasticky strawberry that was in Ariana Grande, and this is what is similar between the two of them. So that's why I'm saying they are quite similar in the way that they present, in the kind of fragrance that they are, and I would say they're cousins. So if you can't afford the Her version, go for the Ariana. You would end up with a very similar dry down. Again, one of those fragrances that I loved on the blotter and I loved at first application, but then 2 hours later, I'm like, uh-oh, this thing is falling apart on me and it's wearing down not very gracefully. So that was kind of what happened. I remember I was doing some training in Toronto and I was shopping in a Sephora probably about a little bit over a year ago. And I tried it on and I seemed to have liked it, and I walked around for 20 minutes and I still liked it, and I just bought it, walked out with it. 2 hours later, I'm smelling my wrist and I'm like, oh no, this is not gonna end well. I ended up not returning it and I went ahead and completed my use of this particular guy, but here is what I feel. It is in fact very, very fruity. There's a ton of berries there. Dominating berry is definitely this, again, plasticky strawberry, and even with that slightly artificial edge, I would love for it to have stayed the way that it applies. It does not, unfortunately. The strawberry, along with the violet, after about an hour or two of wear, really create an impression of a fruity, girly cigarette that was smoked around you, in the vicinity of you, maybe 3 to 4 steps away from you, and then it settled onto your hair and clothes, and now you can't get rid of that slightly cigarette smoking vibe. That's what I got with Her. And that could be quite like picante. It could be something that is a turn on rather than turn off, but for me it was a turn off. For me that did not go well, and for me it did not create any extra interest in the fragrance. It was just annoying. Unfortunately, if you don't have time or a chance to test the fragrance over a longer period of time with several applications, this is what happens. We're all prone to having an instance when we apply a fragrance, we really, really enjoy it, we buy it right away, we don't have a chance to let it live on our skin, and then we walk out with it, and then we realize an hour or two later that this is just not the bee's knees. Nevertheless, it's not terrible and it has a lot of fans. And if you don't mind that dusty, fruity cigarette tobacco smell, then perhaps it won't really bother you. However, if you are somebody who's trying this guy out, beware that the way it applies and the way it wears down aren't really very similar. Obviously, neither of these guys is going to be a repurchase, just in case that wasn't immediately obvious. The next pick from the top of the box, obviously something that I've used up fairly recently, is Bottega Veneta Illusione. I was quite attracted to this fragrance, and I've purchased it in the summertime, and I really realized that it opens best in the colder weather. I wouldn't say this is a disappointment. There was some freshness to it. It does have citrus. And the most interesting part was fig leaf. And this is difficult to explain because it does not smell figgy per se. I would say there's a bit of a flare of preserves in the background, maybe a plum jam, which is really, really nice, but it's not in your face. It's not a prominent function of the fragrance. These notes are supporting and give the fragrance a bit more shape and roundness. And what I felt was going on here is this greenish fig leaf, which was a very attractive thing. And I was thinking for the summer, you know, green fragrances are best. There is citrus to it. The thing that I felt was really playful and sparkly is the currant that is in here, and you can feel the currant, but this is not fresh garden currants. This is currant jelly. It's a bit sugary, which I did not expect because currants are usually quite tart. Tartness is here, but it's quite minimal, so if you like tart fragrances, don't be worried. Bottega Veneta Illusione is not a very sour fragrance. And we do have some tonka bean. The tonka bean that's listed in here really interweaves itself into the currant jelly or currant preserves sort of feeling. So I thought it was nice. I did not like it in the summer. It did turn a little bit sweaty in the summer. Some fragrances, especially some fragrances that do have a bit of tartness and green to it, can have a propensity to lean a little bit towards body odor in certain weather, and in summer it tends to go worse. In winter, that tartness and BO potential really took a back seat, and it was more a fruity, slightly green, sweet preserves. Maybe sweet preserves made out of unripe currants. So, I mean, I did enjoy it. I did finish it. I did wear it for a while. It took me about a year and a half to get through this bottle. I didn't feel, I'm not in love with it. I'm not so attached to it that I would like to repurchase. I'm done with this. It got boring as it got close to completion. So the fragrance is fine. I will not be repurchasing, but I did think that it was an interesting construction, but I did feel also that it leaned a little bit towards sweatiness. So if your skin tends to turn fragrances that way, I'm not sure that that would be a good pick for you. How many have I used up in my lifetime? I'm not really sure. This is Shalimar Parfum Initial. I've repurchased it many a time. I really like the packaging. Obviously, it's really quite pretty. It's a very classic Shalimar packaging. Everybody knows what it looks like. The tassel is very cute. In general, wonderful fragrance. I respect it. I love it. I've had another Shalimar that I'll be pulling in a minute, also in my empties this year. I am really Shalimar saturated. Can't bring myself to keep wearing any of the flankers even. I did a bit too much this year in terms of Guerlain Shalimar wear. Now, a Parfum Initial is a fairly wearable iteration of the original. It definitely is a more updated, modern version of the original. It's a little bit more simple and to the point, which is good because sometimes, especially for people who are not really used to the orchestra, the huge punch that comes with the classic fragrances could be a little overwhelming. Now, Shalimar takes the thinking out of it, and their flanker, the Parfum Initial, is much easier to get along with. So if you want to be a Shalimar girl, Parfum Initial is a very, very good place to start. There is a vanillic, slightly burnt sensation here. It's not so sweet that it makes you feel that you're smelling a gourmand. It's not really a gourmand at all, I would say. but there is a dryness to it, there is a sophistication to it. For me, Parfum Initial is a little bit more clean, edited, and elevated as compared to the original. The original was created in a different time when perfumery really was a bit more heavy and full-bodied and complex. It doesn't mean that complicated isn't always good, and I think in terms of Shalimar and wearability, Initial takes the cake here for sure. I will definitely be repurchasing it. It's a wonderful fragrance and I really enjoyed wearing it, but I had a lot of Shalimar this year. Speaking of another one, we have the Eau de Cologne, Shalimar Eau de Cologne. The bottle is obviously not as beautiful as the Parfum Initial. It's pretty. I don't mind it. This one is Shalimar with the base cut down to a rather minimal and lighter weight iteration and lighter weight product. It is less full-bodied and impactful than the Initial. It's a little bit more wearable. Again, if you are someone who has trouble wearing or imagining yourself wearing Shalimar, Initial is one option, but also the Eau de Cologne is a good option because the bottom notes are cleaned up and trimmed a little bit, so the fragrance doesn't come across as heavy and onerous as the original does, the Parfum. Again, surprisingly, although this is a very vintage formulation, it's fairly wearable. I liked it. I think I do prefer Parfum Initial, although this is probably even easier to wear. So I think let's stop here for today. I will continue. I have many more to get through. I'll continue with my 2020 Perfume Empties in part number 2, and we will continue discussion of what it was that I got through this year and what my final accord impression has been about these particular fragrances. I'll see you guys later. Have a good day. I hope you continue feeling well. Good luck to you. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. And I'll be talking to you later. Moving on to part 2. Bye-bye.